Welcome back to another edition of Force Friday, where we talk about Star Wars theories, characters, concepts, comparisons, analyzations, collectibles, and more.
And today we're going to be comparing the Black Series Mandalorian with the SH Figuarts Mandalorian. It's been a long time since we've compared a 1/12 scale figure, and since we have started comparing figures, it's kind of definitely evolved in terms of what it has become and how the criteria has been sorted out. So I thought maybe we would do it with these guys, since the SHF was most recently released. Take a look at the Hasbro one. We've been having a lot of discussions recently about import stuff and domestic stuff in regards to Black Series or 1/12 scale Star Wars stuff. So therefore, I thought what better way to handle it than give it a shot in our new style, see how it shapes out. So with that being said, let's get started, but we have to start with accessories. So both figures come with the long rifle and with the pistol. The SHF pistol is integrated into the holster far more intricately with extra accessories to pull it off, as well as the rifle onto the backpack. And the Hasbro one has to actually sacrifice the shape of the cape in order to pull off the rifle on his back. Plus the SHF comes with a slew of hands. However, the SHF does come with a number of little doodads and nubs and little blocks in order to kind of hide all of the accessories perfectly. So there's a slight takeaway for that. But overall, the sculpt, paint, and quantity of the SHF far exceeds that of the Hasbro. Now we'll kind of take a look at build and materials, but in this we also want to kind of include the presence from our perspective, and when I say our, I mean mine. But that being said, we have to take into account proportions, and I think the proportions of the Hasbro one are just superior. The length of legs to torso, the length between head to pelvis, the SHF one just feels squished here. And I'm not really sure why they decided to go that route, because I feel like it throws off the entire look of the figure. Now, I don't like the shape of the Hasbro cape, and I would have preferred it with soft goods. However, I feel like the SHF did a poor job with the soft goods, so kind of a bummer there as well. Now, in terms of the actual literal build, the SHF is far superior. Materials-wise, too, the plastic is far superior with the SHF. When you get into stuff like hardware, we have pretty much disc hinges and swivels and ball pegs in regard to the Hasbro, whereas the SHF is far more sophisticated with proper hinges, universals, cover down, shoulder pads, ball hinged, wrists, etc., etc. So in those regards, the SHF definitely takes the lead. So when looking at the head, I have to say that I like the sculpt better of the SH Figuarts, but because I feel like the head is too small for the body, it throws it completely off, and I have to end up giving it sculpt-wise to Hasbro. However, I just watched some of the Mandalorian recently, and the weathering on the Hasbro is far too intense. It doesn't look that weathered. It's heavy-handed, whereas the subtle shading on the SH Figuarts I feel like is much preferred. From a side view, I pretty much feel the same way, both in regard to the proportions, sculpt, and paint. In regard to the arms, I think they're both sculpted beautifully. SHF's forearm gauntlets are probably a little sharper, but I think it's so minute. Now, the paint is where it becomes far more obvious of the caliber of company that you're dealing with. If you look at the subtle shading line work around the edges of the shoulder pads as well as the gauntlets, the SHF really shines. Now, normally I would give SHF credit for the weathering too, the silver weathering, but I have to say I think Hasbro actually did a better job here on the shoulder pad. And the same kind of goes for the side of the arm as well. I will say that a lot of the sharpness in the sculpting of the undersuit of the Mandalorian really shines here on the SHF for what it's worth. Now, when talking about the arms, we got to look at the other arm as well with this figure because of the different shoulder pad, and I feel like it's pretty negligible, the differences, but once again, I kind of like the weathering better on the Hasbro, but I kind of like the blue paint better on the SHF, but really, once again, very minor. In regard to the chest, abdomen, hips area, I much prefer the belt of the SHF. I much prefer the sharp paint of the silver on the chest plate of the SHF, and I mean that mainly on the symbol. I kind of like the muted tones better on the Hasbro, and obviously the proportions here on the Hasbro is what's really the winning ticket for me. Now, looking at it from the side, no real difference. I just prefer the flaps on the SHF. I'm not even sure actually at this moment if they're more screen accurate or not. I just prefer the longer flap. Looking at the legs, another time I feel like the Hasbro one really shines, and it's because of the engineering of the hips for the Mandalorian from the SHF. It ends up looking more cut up, more choppy, less smooth, less cohesive. I do prefer the muted tones of the Hasbro Hasbro. However, I do have to admit that the paint job is much more successful on the SHF. It's sharper, it's cleaner, it's more meaningful, but the sculpt work throughout the entire lower part of the body, while it may be sharper on the SHF, it's so negligible, and the Hasbro one is really done quite well. Looking at it from one side, pretty equal, but we have to take note that SHF does have the extra painted strap on the boot, and the boots are completely brown. So let's just take a mental note of that. Looking at the opposite side, pretty much the exact same situation. And it's interesting because the Hasbro one has one strap painted on one leg and one strap painted on the other leg, but the SHF has both straps painted on both legs, and the boots are painted. Looking at the backs of the figure, you would never think in a million years that I would choose a plastic cape over a soft goods cape, but when the soft good cape is this stupid looking, I have to go with the Hasbro one. The cape just looks better. It has a little bit of style to it. I still wish it was a soft goods cape with just a little bit more heft to it, but given the two options, I mean, one looks like a children's cutout piece of construction paper attached to it, and one looks like a cape.
So our final results of sculpt and paint ends up being a tie. They tie at the head because the SHF is sculpted sharper and painted better, but it's too small. And the Hasbro head is better proportioned and the sculpt is negligible. So the SHF ends up having better paint, the Hasbro one better sculpt overall due to proportions. They also tie at the hips because the SHF belt along with holster and all of that is sculpted and painted far better than the Hasbro, but the SHF doesn't look as clean and cohesive as the Hasbro. Hasbro takes the lead at the torso, mainly due to proportions, and also for the same reasons takes the lead from the front view as well, but from the back he takes the win mainly due to the cape. The SHF edges the Hasbro out with the arms mainly due to sculpted details and tighter paint, the thighs mainly for the same reason, and the lower legs for better paint and more of it. Also cleaner sculpt overall.
Let's go over articulation. We have a double ball peg on the Hasbro one from the head into the neck, and then a single ball joint from the neck into the chest. Using both, you can get the head down to there, up to there, and the swivel, confused dog look, etc. On the SHF, it's pretty much the same thing. Double ball peg from the head into the neck, single from the neck into the chest. Using both, you can get it further down, about the same up, side to side, confused dog look. The Hasbro torso, I think, is on a single ball peg. You can get a good around, side to side, teapot, a little bit of a crunch over, a decent crunch back. The SHF has a double from the chest into the abdomen and a single from the abdomen into the pelvis. Gets you less of a swivel because it's a tighter cut on the joint. Gets you a good teapot, so to speak. Gets you over a limited amount, back a great amount, and that's it. The shoulders on the Hasbro one, this armor is kind of meant to go up and over the chest area, and you can get it out to 90 degrees, and you can get it around, and it has a ball peg into the chest with a cover down, which gets you a slight butterfly as well. SHF, same engineering, but far greater range. Well, maybe not far greater, but greater range. The shoulder pad is independently articulated, so that'll get up and out of the way with no problem. Plus the swivel around, plus you get drop down and up, and the butterfly is a bit more. No proper bicep swivel, but you get it where the joint plugs into the bicep for the elbow. Proper bicep swivel. Single hinged elbow, 90 degrees. Double jointed elbow, past 90 degrees. Wrist swivel with a hinge in out, and on the opposite side, up down. Ball hinge swivel, so you'll get in, out, and up down depending on which way you have it positioned with a greater range. T-jointed ball joints for hips. Get you the legs out about forward and back to there. These hips are universals. Somebody had said that they were drop down universals. It's not entirely accurate, but I know what you mean. The legs will actually drop down on the universal, not the universal dropping down from the hips. Using that, you can get the legs out to about the same degree. Forward a bit more. Yeah. A bit though, not crazy. Thigh swivel at a cut joint, thigh swivel built around the universal. Double jointed knee for the full range, double jointed knee with less range but better looking. Ankle tilt up, down, in a rocker. Ankle tilt up, down, and a rocker. Nothing for the feet. Toe tilt.
So for a final score, SH Figuarts definitely takes the lead. However, it's not a slaughterhouse. They do double Hasbro's points, but we're talking 2 versus 4, whereas they tie in 7 categories, including head, neck, waist. And I'm basically saying that because I'm giving Hasbro the chest for the swivel, biceps, hips, thighs, and ankles. And I had to say hips because Hasbro gets out a little bit more to the sides. SHF gets a little bit more in front of it. Hasbro takes the lead in the chest once again due to the swivel and in the knees due to range. SHF takes it in the feet because Hasbro doesn't compete in the category. Better range in the elbow, much better engineered wrist, and better engineered shoulders, but not by a landslide, just better.
Scale-wise, it's not really fair because the SHF is proper 112 scale and it's sitting here with everything that's kind of the more Western heroic 112 scale, so it's not very fair. However, obviously the Hasbro does fit in better because it's fitting in with all Hasbro figures. So there's just not a great way to kind of judge this. Ultimately, I think either will work fine. It's hard for me to find a full clean body of the Mandalorian pick, so I'm using one that's a piece of art and one that's the Hot Toys because they're generally pretty accurate. I'll flash back and forth between the two. I think that they're both pretty accurate. I feel like Hasbro got the proportions better, and while the boots are a different color from the pants, I don't feel like they're as drastically a different color as the SHF is. So I think it's pretty close, but ultimately, gun to my head, or blaster in this case, having to choose one, I'd probably go with the Hasbro. All right, do you care which one of these is better?
No.
Can you tell me which one looks better?
I think the one on the right.
Can you pick them up and tell me which one feels better?
The one on the left.
Do you care which one of these is better?
No.
Which one looks better?
This one.
Which one feels better?
Probably this one.
Okay. Do you care which one of these is better?
No.
Which one looks better?
This one.
Which one feels better?
Ouch.
Did you say ouch? Is his body that fell?
Probably this one.
Okay. Baby,
Hey,
which one looks better to you?
I think that one.
This one? Mm-hmm. Touch them both. Here you go. And now touch this one.
Oh, this one looks so nice.
Which one do you like better in your hand?
That one.
Still that one, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So all in all, at the end of the day, SH Figuarts definitely takes the lead. They take it in accessories, build, materials, hardware, which I don't think come to any as a surprise, paint and articulation, which I don't think come to any as a surprise, as well as presence. Hasbro takes it in likeness, but you could make the argument that the colors are better on the SH Figuarts, which wouldn't be wrong. I just think that overall, the look is more accurate on the Hasbro, like sculpt-wise and proportion-wise. And of course, Hasbro's going to take it on the price every day of the week. But what I think is interesting here is what they tie in. Gimmicks, because they both kind of hold their accessories properly and both store their accessories properly, all that kind of stuff. But sculpt, because SHF throws it away on proportions and Hasbro, it keeps it pretty neck and neck with the rest of the figure. Scale, obviously, and the feel. I had to tie the feel because my family preferred the way the Hasbro felt. Now, that probably came down to weight and they just don't know the difference, so I would have never given it to Hasbro because it's probably just ignorance on their part. But I think it does count for something, that the layman picking it up, not knowing exactly what they're looking for, just being asked what feels better, and they say the Hasbro, I think that counts for something, so I tied that out as well. So ultimately, Figuarts takes it 7-2. Now, this may seem unfair, but perhaps it won't when we get to final thoughts. Final thoughts wise, let me explain my reasoning. I think that Figuarts deserves to take it 7-2. However, if you think about this in a sliding scale kind of a thing, yes, they take the lead in paint. It doesn't mean that the Hasbro's painted poorly. Yes, they take the lead in hardware, and Hasbro could learn a bit more from their joints. They also take it in accessories. Hasbro could learn a bit there. So these are all kind of real, legit, honest criticisms of what Hasbro was doing in regard to the Black Series. But the fact that throughout this video, and this is what I need you to think about, that throughout this video we had to talk about just how close everything was and how Figuarts kind of kept edging Hasbro out of a win in a category, it does say something to the caliber of figure that Hasbro is producing at 1/3 to 1/4 of the price. That's no small feat. Both are outstanding figures. Both are good in their own respects. If you want my opinion, I think the Hasbro's probably good enough. The Hasbro is the one I'm putting on my Mandalorian shelf, and the SH Figuarts I'm putting in my office for what that means. But I had to stay objective and say that Figuarts definitely takes it if we're going category by category, point by point. Hope y'all are staying safe. Hope y'all are staying sane. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.